In this video, I'm going to talk about dopamine and how it controls your habits and decisions. Hey, my name is Alan, and in this video, I'm going to talk about dopamine. This hormone is responsible for a lot of things, including controlling your habits and decisions. Most people don't know much about dopamine, so stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what it does and how you can use that information to improve your life. What dopamine is and what it does. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers. Dopamine also plays a role in motivation, attention, and learning. The brain releases dopamine in response to pleasurable stimuli, such as food, sex, or drugs. This release of dopamine is what makes these activities feel pleasurable or rewarding. Dopamine is also involved in motivation. It helps us seek out rewards and encourages us to repeat behaviors that have led to rewards in the past. For example, if you eat a delicious meal, dopamine is released and creates a feeling of pleasure. This feeling of pleasure motivates you to seek out similar meals in the future. Attention and learning are also controlled by dopamine. Dopamine helps us focus on rewards and pay attention to information that is related to those rewards. For example, if you see a sign for a new restaurant that serves your favorite food, dopamine will help you pay attention to the sign and remember the location of the restaurant. Dopamine is a chemical messenger involved in many processes, including movement, motivation, pleasure, attention, and even learning. It is released by neurons, nerve cells, in various regions of the brain, including the substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area. Dopamine has many functions in the brain, but it is best known for its role in motivation and reward-seeking behavior. Dopamine has also been implicated in disorders such as ADHD, depression, and schizophrenia. Dopamine is produced by the body and is also found in certain food sources, such as chocolate and coffee. Dopamine works by binding to dopamine receptors, which are located on the surface of cells. Dopamine receptors are G-protein-coupled receptors that are activated by dopamine. When dopamine binds to a dopamine receptor, it causes a change in the cell that leads to a number of different downstream effects. For example, dopamine can cause changes in the way that genes are expressed, which can lead to changes in cell function. Dopamine can also influence the way that cells communicate with each other. The different ways dopamine can be released. Dopamine can be released in different ways. One way is by eating certain foods that contain dopamine. Another way is through sexual activity. And lastly, it can also be released through drugs or alcohol. All of these methods can lead to a release of dopamine in the brain. However, each method has its own risks and benefits. It is important to understand all of the risks and benefits before choosing any one method to release dopamine. Eating foods that contain dopamine. There are certain foods that contain high levels of dopamine. These include chocolate, nuts, and bananas. Eating these foods can cause a release of dopamine in the brain. However, it is important to note that eating too much of these foods can lead to weight gain. Sexual activity. Sexual activity can also lead to a release of dopamine in the brain. This is because sexual activity releases endorphins, which are chemicals that act on the brain to produce feelings of pleasure. However, it is important to note that unsafe or unprotected sex can lead to sexually transmitted diseases. Drugs or alcohol. Using drugs or alcohol can also lead to a release of dopamine in the brain. This is because these substances cause the brain to release dopamine. However, it is important to note that using drugs or alcohol can lead to addiction and other health problems. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that plays an important role in the brain's reward system. This dopamine release reinforces the behavior that led to the pleasure, which helps us to repeat it in the future. Dopamine is also released during activities that are essential for survival, such as eating and drinking. Dopamine is also involved in learning and memory. When we learn something new, dopamine is released in the brain, which helps us to remember the information. Dopamine is also involved in movement and coordination. Dopamine neurons fire when we initiate movement, and they help to control the muscles used for movement. Dopamine deficits have been linked to a number of neurological disorders, such as Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, and ADHD. How dopamine affects habits and decisions. Dopamine affects habits and decision-making by influencing the way we process information and make choices. When dopamine levels are low, we're more likely to act impulsively and make poor decisions. When dopamine levels are high, we're more likely to be focused and make better choices. Dopamine also affects our motivation levels. When dopamine levels are low, we may not feel motivated to do anything. When dopamine levels are high, we're more likely to feel motivated and take action. So how does dopamine affect your habits and decisions? Dopamine affects habits by influencing the way we process information. When dopamine levels are low, we're more likely to pay attention to immediate rewards and overlook long-term consequences. This can lead to impulsive decision-making and bad habits. When dopamine levels are high, we're more likely to focus on long-term goals and make better choices. In short, dopamine helps us to focus, plan ahead, and make better decisions. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that plays an important role in many brain functions, including mood, sleep, memory, and motivation. Studies have shown that dopamine affects the way we learn from rewards and punishments. For example, dopamine is released when we eat something delicious or when we achieve a goal. This dopamine release reinforces the behavior that led to the reward, making us more likely to repeat it in the future. In sum, dopamine plays an important role in many aspects of our behavior, from forming habits to making decisions. Ways to increase or decrease dopamine levels. There are a number of ways that people can increase or decrease their dopamine levels. Some of these methods are more effective than others. 1. Exercise. Exercise is one of the best ways to increase dopamine levels. It not only helps to improve mood and well-being, but it also increases the production of dopamine. Aerobic exercise is the best type of exercise for this purpose. Research has shown that aerobic exercise can increase dopamine levels by up to 30%. This is because exercise increases the release of dopamine in the brain. Aerobic exercise is any type of activity that gets your heart rate up and makes you breathe harder. Some examples include walking, running, biking, and swimming. 2. Eat healthy foods. Eating healthy foods is another great way to increase dopamine levels. Foods that are rich in protein and omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to boost dopamine levels. Some great examples of dopamine-boosting foods include salmon, tuna, eggs, walnuts, avocados, spinach. 3. Get enough sleep. Getting enough sleep is important for overall health and well-being. It has also been shown to increase dopamine levels. A good night's sleep can help improve mood, increase dopamine levels, and promote overall health and well-being. 4. Reduce stress. Reducing stress is another effective way to increase dopamine levels. Stress can cause the body to produce less dopamine. There are a number of ways to reduce stress, including exercise, yoga, meditation, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. 5. Take supplements. There are a number of supplements that can help to increase dopamine levels. These include tyrosine, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids. 6. Spend time in nature. Spending time in nature has been shown to be beneficial for mental health. It can also help to increase dopamine levels. 7. Connect with others. Connecting with others is an important part of well-being. It has been shown to increase dopamine levels and reduce stress. There are many ways to connect with others, such as volunteering, attending community events, or joining a club. No matter how you choose to do it, connecting with others can help you improve your well-being. 8. Listen to music. Listening to music has been shown to be beneficial for mental health. It can also help to increase dopamine levels. 9. Practice meditation. Meditation has been shown to be beneficial for mental health. It can also help to increase dopamine levels. 10. Do something you enjoy. Doing things you enjoy is an important part of well-being. It can also help to increase dopamine levels. Dopamine levels can be increased or decreased by various factors. Dopamine levels are increased by drugs, such as amphetamines and cocaine. On the other hand, consuming high amounts of sugar, caffeine, and processed foods can decrease dopamine levels. Therefore, it is important to be aware of both the factors that can increase dopamine levels and those that can decrease them. Dopamine is an important chemical that affects many different things in the brain. It can be released in several different ways, and it affects everything from habits to decision-making. By understanding how dopamine works, you can learn how to increase or decrease its levels in your own brain. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel for new videos every week.